Two pieces of news. First of all, Brandon Rigsby is in the transfer portal. He came over from Northwest Florida Junior College, Northwest Florida State, something like that, a couple of years ago. He's been, sometimes a spot starter, but mostly a bench player for the Ducks. His role offensively really diminished over the course of the season, so seeing him in the transfer portal didn't exactly shock me. He's someone who I would have loved to have had back. He's got good athleticism. He can hit the three, but his role took a back seat for a reason. His production wasn't great over the second half of the year. He's in the transfer portal, so Oregon, once again, is going to have to be active. And that begs the question, is Jordan Pope a guy that Oregon should go get? And I say once again begs the question because I asked it earlier on the show. He just entered the transfer portal yesterday, depending on when you're listening to or watching today's program, which I appreciate you doing, by the way. So Jordan Pope is a certified baller. This guy is 17 points a game, 37% from deep. He was a big part of an Oregon State team that really, really struggled. And the Beavs are going through some tough times right now because their leader from this Elite Eight women's basketball team run, Talia, forget her last name, but she's the one that wears glasses in her presser. Not on the court, I don't think, but really, really good player. She was kind of their leader and their center this year. She's in the transfer portal. And then Jordan Pope entered the transfer portal, and he was kind of the lone bright spot for Oregon State this year. He had that game winner in Corvallis against Arizona when the Wildcats were ranked inside the top 10. So the guy is a certified scorer, big-time bucket. I don't think he is the right fit for Oregon. Why? He and Jackson Shelstad are both 6-foot guards who want to play with the ball in their hands. Now, my objection to bringing in Jordan Pope, not an objection, that's the wrong term, because if Oregon were to end up getting him, it could turn into a really, really dynamic duo with those two guys in the backcourt. My question would be, how are they going to measure up defensively? Because if you're an everydayer out there, like Liam is, question asker earlier on the show, and you follow men's basketball as closely as I do, you know that when this team finally got itself going at the end of the year and won 4 straight between the Pac-12 tournament and the NCAA tournament, actually 5 straight with the end of the regular season, what was the biggest thing that changed? They started playing real defense. And you know who was at the center of that? Jermaine Cousinard. Like, number one thing that Oregon actually needs going into next year is for somebody to be the alpha. Because for 2 years that was missing, and Oregon missed the tournament, and that was a big reason why. And Cousinard stepped into that role in an even bigger way this year, and look what happened. He was taken over in the tournament. Oregon should have been in the Sweet 16, but it was an awesome, fantastic run, and Cousinard was at the middle of it. And Dana Altman spoke repeatedly about the leadership of Dante and Cousinard. Okay, those guys are gone now, and Aquendo's gone, and Rigsby's gone. So this is starting to shape up to be a vastly different roster for Oregon next year. Jordan Pope and Jackson Shelstad, Pope primarily. I didn't watch a ton of Oregon State games, admittedly. He was listed as a shooting guard coming out of high school, but I think he played mostly kind of the point role for the Ducks, or for the Beavs. Now, if he were to come to the Ducks, you would have 2 guards who are just 3-level scorers and high-level shooters in Jackson Shelstad, Jordan Pope. You'd have one of the best scoring backcourts in all of college basketball. That's not over-exaggerating things. I expect Shelstad to make that sophomore leap, and we already know what Jordan Pope is. He's played 2 years of college ball. My question is, what does this look like at the defensive end? Because Cousinard wasn't just the alpha in the locker room, he was also the alpha on defense. And when this team clicked defensively, you know why? Because Cousinard was there busting everybody's butt if you weren't dialed in at that end of the floor. Every time in those cinematic recaps, who's being vocal? Cousinard. What was he often talking about? Defense. And you watch the games, Cousinard's a great defender, and Cousinard is 6'4". So can you roll out a lineup that defends the way Dana Altman teams are able to with Jordan Pope and Jackson Shelstad as your starting backcourt? I think Shelstad's sequence-to-sequence individual defense can improve. His activity is actually quite good. He gets his hand on passes. He reads the passing lanes. He is active with his hands. He can get better. First of all, he needs to get a little stronger, right? He's a little skinny coming in as a true freshman this year, but that's often the case for true freshmen. KJ Evans, that's less true, but kind of true. Like, it's definitely less true with Evans than with Shelstad. Like, Evans got a presence to him out there. I, again, have not heard anything on KJ Evans after he was, reportedly undecided about next year. Kind of seems like he's coming back because everybody's in the transfer portal right now. And so if you've got Shelstad and you've got Evans, that's a great start to your starting five. I know what I'm getting from those two, and I think they both take leaps next year. But with Jordan Pope, I don't know what your options are defensively. If you're going to roll out two guards who are offensively minded and are both 6 feet tall even, you better have, like, KJ is already a plus defender. That's great. If Nate Biddle's healthy, maybe he's your starting five. He's a plus defender. That's great. Whoever that wing is, you better have an absolute lockdown defender in that spot. If it's Bam Tracy, I don't know if that team can get enough stops. I really don't. Tracy's got size, but I've talked about it on the show before. Tracy is not a plus defender. And so that's what my question would be. Now, would Oregon be able to score points? Yeah. Yeah, they'd be able to score. You could have a lineup next year. If it were Pope, Shelstad, Tracy Evans, Biddle, that's 1 through 5, can give you 15 to 20 points a game on any given night and can shoot the three. That's a dangerous team on offense. But Dana likes his teams to play defense. It turns out that matters a pretty good amount. And so that's my concern. Question, whatever you want to say. Like, if Oregon ends up landing him, of course, Dana has seen him a couple times, and I think it was the first half of the second game, he was just cooking Oregon. Like, the Ducks had absolutely no answer, even with Cousinard out there. But you have not just lost Cousinard the scorer and Cousinard the leader, you've lost Cousinard the defender. Probably in that order, right? His scoring, got to be able to replace that. And Pope is a better scorer than Jermaine Cousinard. He is more efficient, he's a better shooter. I 100% believe that. But is his offense enough of an upgrade to justify what I think would be the defensive downgrade? Now, admittedly, I don't really have a feel for what Jordan Pope is defensively. I'm just looking at the size and saying 2 6-foot guards. That reminds me a lot of the team a couple years ago that had what was Joe Young's younger brother who came over from Rutgers in Texas. Now I gotta look it up. I don't know why it went out of my head. His sibling, Jacob Young. Yeah, Jacob Young. When you had Jacob Young on the floor, even that kind of worked a little bit more because Will Richardson was playing point guard, and Will Richardson was 6'5". So you had a little bit more size in the backcourt when you played those, 2 and 3 guard lineups. Like when they had Amari Hardy, who, was a one and done with the Ducks and transferred to Oklahoma. I think it was Oklahoma. Maybe it was Texas Tech. When they rolled out that lineup of Joe Young and Amari Hardy and Will Richardson, wasn't the best guard lineup at the defensive end of the floor. So that's my concern. That's my concern or question there is, would they be able to get enough out of Pope at that end of the floor? Maybe they would. They'd be explosive offensively, but that's how I feel about Jordan Pope. That felt like somewhat of a negative note to end on. Let's end with this. Oregon baseball cracked the top 25 for the first time this year. Michael Freund turned in a delightful outing of 6 innings and 2 runs on the road against Portland. A good team in the WCC. Ducks won the first game 7-4. They're doing pretty darn well at this point in the year. Just keep racking up the wins. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.